of the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. Thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. Madam Secretary, if you could call our roll, please.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Gerald Bepko. He's supposed to be on the phone. Hi, Jerry. Dennis Bland.
Present.
John Conant. Sir Correll. John Costas. Susana Lopez Suarez, present. Judd Fisher. Lisa Hirschman. Al Hubbard. Chris Amoff. Chris Murphy. Dan Peterson. John Pop. Karen Whitehouse. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We have a quorum. At this time, we would like to welcome the president of Vincennes University, President Chuck Johnson, for a welcoming remark. Sir, thank you for having us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks everyone for being here today. We are obviously pleased to have you here. We hope you've had a good time so far learning about some of the different programs and different equipment we have here. I know some of you have managed to land safely this morning, and I'm pleased to know that the future of Indiana aviation is safe. But we are quite proud of this facility, as you might expect. It's been a great part of the workforce development of Central Indiana and for the aviation industry for almost 25 years now. I would like to introduce a few members of my administrative team who've been here today as well. Vice President Phil Roth. We also have Vice President for Workforce Development Dave Tucker, who one of Dave's responsibilities is overseeing our new partnership in Lebanon, the Haas Training Center, which focuses on CNC machining and industrial maintenance and metrology, that just opened officially at the early start of this year. And also our Provost, Laurel Smith, is here as well. So any of us are certainly willing and able to assist you in anything that you might need today, as well as going forward. But we're very proud of the role this facility plays as part of Vincennes University's programming, and I think it is a great representation of the kinds of things that VU does, working in partnership with our industry partners to help us develop workforce and talent needs for Indiana. To give you a little bit more of a background on the facility and the programs that we offer, I'd like to introduce Mike Garret, a VU alum and director of the Aviation Technology Center.
Good afternoon. Since 1964, Vincennes University has been providing aviation training in Indiana. The Aviation Technology Center that we're in today was opened in 1993, and in 2010 we moved the aviation flight program up here. So all things aviation at Vincennes University are located right here at the Aviation Technology Center. As you tour the facility, you might notice several ways that the recent renovation improved the facility for our students. You might have noticed the simulation labs on the way in the facility today. Maybe you took a ride in one of the planes. We have 2 full motion simulators and 2 stationary simulators for our flight students to use. I'd call your attention to the floor that you're sitting on right now. Not only is it pretty, but in aviation, everything's about inspection and being able to look at the aircraft in a detailed eye and make sure that everything's okay. And you can see the reflection of this floor is almost like a mirror. So that really helps our students learn about inspection process, what they're going to do when they get into the field. The 737 engines that you see behind me are the exact ones that are on our aircraft up here. And so every student will now have the opportunity to do an engine change just like they do on a commercial airliner and just like they'll do when they get out in the field. Speaking of large aircraft, you might notice the big airplane behind you, our 737. We are still the only institution in the nation that has a full functioning airliner under roof, and we're very proud of that. You'll notice all the equipment that's attached to the plane on the other side. So this isn't just a trophy for us. We actually have all the ground support equipment needed so that our students can learn what it's going to be like to work on big airplanes. Our industry partners have also taken notice of what we offer. Through our partnership with Republic Airlines, all of our flight graduates are guaranteed an interview with Republic Airlines once they reach the minimum required flight hours to be an airline pilot. We have an internship program with AAR Corporation, so several of our maintenance students are working as unlicensed technician helpers at AAR right now while they're finishing up their training here. Significantly, the ATC has the only co-op program with Federal Express nationwide. We're the only school to have that. We're very proud of that. All of these programs help to ensure the placement of our graduates. And in fact, I'm very proud to say that we have 100% placement of our aviation maintenance graduates for the past 2 years. In fact, we have 2 to 3 job offers for every graduate right now. So if you've heard the word about the shortages of airline pilots and mechanics, it is a real thing, and the industry is experiencing it, and we're doing all that we can to help with that. Many of the companies that you see behind me on the billboard up there are the companies that support this program and hire our graduate. Certainly AAR and Republic are 2 of the biggest, but also we have Comlux, Textron, Rolls-Royce, Triumph Aviation, and many, many others right here in Indiana that are hiring our graduates. While this is all exciting news for our program and for our students, we're still challenged to keep the students here long enough to earn a degree. Because of this, we recently created certificate programs for our students so that now, in addition to the degree option, if they choose, they can take just an airframe certificate or just a power plant certificate. What this does is it better allows them to hone in specifically what they want to do, get the training in a shorter amount of time, and be work ready much quicker. It's just another way that we're helping to solve the industry problem, and we think it will also go a long way towards better reflecting the success of our graduates. Currently, we have approximately 175 maintenance students and approximately 60 pilots that are here in the program. The FAA is projecting major shortages of technicians and pilots for the foreseeable future, and we're excited to play a vital role in providing the next generation of aviation maintenance professionals. I'd like to thank you, our distinguished guests, for being here today, for providing the support that we need to offer programs like this. I would invite you to tour the facility if you haven't yet, get your picture taken inside the 737, take a flight in one of the flight simulators, and certainly take a look at all the laboratories that we have on the 1st and 2nd floor. Thank you again for being here today.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you, President Johnson. And again, on behalf of the entire commission, thank you all for being such a wonderful host for us.
May I ask a question? Could I ask the gentleman, the leader over there, a question, please? Sir, can I ask a question, please?
I apologize. One of the disadvantages in aviation is a little bit of hearing loss. Please.
Or Teresa yelled at me. Well, first, congratulations. I mean, this is, I had no clue this existed, and it's so valuable to our state and our community. Sure. I'm just curious to know how many applicants you have for your various programs, and what are the qualifications, and how long it takes to get the various degrees. I realize you don't need to go into details on everything, but just give us a feel for, and then what kind of earnings can a graduate expect? And then finally, if you can remember all these,
sure.
I'd love to know, given that the demand exceeds the supply, what's involved in expanding so you can produce more Hoosiers that can earn, hopefully, very impressive salaries that you're going to disclose to us.
Sure. So I'll do the best I can. So one of the unique things that we have in addition to the college program is, since the building opened, we have a dual credit program. So juniors and seniors in high school can actually come here and earn college credit in the aviation maintenance program while they're still in high school. Through Area 31 Career Center, they can actually graduate high school and earn their airframe certificate at the same time, so that as a college student, all they need to do is finish up the power plant course. The entire combined program is about 20 months. So if they do just the airframe or just the power plant separate, we're in the 12-month range each. There's a little bit of overlap that the FAA requires. Salary-wise, we're in the $17 to $20 per hour starting, and that's local. I can tell you FedEx, UPS, and Southwest Airlines are all over $50 per hour for flat rate for a senior mechanic. So a 5-year mechanic's making $100,000 a year coming out of a technical trade school. Great opportunities. One of the biggest challenges that this industry has and that we have marketing this program is aviation is a very closed industry, especially with some of the TSA regulations and things that happened post 9/11. If you're not in aviation, if you weren't born into it, then very likely you've not had much exposure to aviation. So it's very, very difficult for us to market the program and get the industry to help with that. And so that's one of the challenges that not only the FAA sees, but the industry sees. And so as you look at the banners behind us, certainly those are signs of support from industry, but I think the memorandums of understanding that we have with the airlines and the commitments that we have in place are showing that the industry recognizes that our graduates are work ready and what they're looking for. So undeniably our biggest challenge is how do we recruit more folks into this program, and that's something that we're working on very hard, and we work very closely with the industry to help with that.
So there's a problem with having enough applicants for the...
There actually is. So on the pilot side, pilot's the kind of the glorified or the beautiful side of aviation. So most folks say, oh, I want to be a pilot. There are some challenges there. One is certainly financial. It's very expensive to go through the flight program, even through Vincennes University. Medical things can disqualify folks as well. So on the flight side, we have about 3 applicants for every slot that we have. So no real issue on the flight side for us in terms of those numbers. On the maintenance side, we're not getting the application that we need. And really, I think last fall we had about 96 applicants, and that equated out to about 60 new students coming in. So while we have 175 students in the program currently, and enrollment is increasing semester over semester, this facility was built to be able to house 400 maintenance students alone. So we still have plenty of room for expansion. We just got to get that word out.
It's astounding that if people knew they could in 5 years earn $100,000 a year, you wouldn't be flooded with applicants.
It truly is, and I think again it speaks highly or speaks directly to the fact that aviation is a closed industry. And then I think if you go back in time around 9/11, United Airlines was here and left the city, and there were 4,500 mechanics that lost their jobs. American Transair was here and lost employment. So I think there are still enough Hoosiers that are around that don't understand that aviation has changed significantly since that time, and it is an industry with a lot of growth ahead of it and a lot of demand. Any other questions I can answer? Thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much. From the chair's seat in terms of remarks, the commission will host a number of events coming this April. The next steps, college conference will take place on Saturday, April the 2nd at Ivy Tech Community College. Over 100 current 21st century scholars, students will participate in interactive and engaging workshops that will not only promote academic success, but the overall well-being of scholars as they pursue their academic endeavors. Also, in lieu of a regular commission meeting, you're invited to and strongly encouraged to attend a 2-part discussion on our new strategic plan, Reaching Higher Delivering Value, at our annual State of Higher Education address and the H. Kent Weldon Conference for Higher Education. The State of Higher Education address will take place on April the 13th at 4:00 p.m. at the State House. And then the Weldon Conference will take place on the next day, April 14th at 9 a.m. at the Indianapolis Marriott North. And it will feature remarks by Governor Mike Pence and a keynote address by Kevin Carey, a national thought leader on higher education issues and an acclaimed author. Both plenary sessions and breakout sessions later in the day will delve deeper into issues related to college value. And I hope to see each of you there. I would also encourage you to extend the invitation to any of those in your professional or community networks that might benefit from attending. And you can please direct all questions and inquiries about the Commission's upcoming events to events@che.in.gov. That's events@che.in.gov. And I'll turn it over to Commissioner Lubbers for the Commissioner's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to be together with you again, and as we discuss several important issues at our working session, you know that the legislative session is slated to conclude this afternoon. Among the many issues that we talked to you about in terms of our own agenda bills, we talked about the many bills and issues that were related to teacher recruitment, quality, and capacity. When we were putting together the new document that you'll be considering this afternoon, Reaching Higher Delivering Value, we certainly considered the previous two plans. And I thought it was really interesting that a major focus in the original strategic plan, which was a 2008 document, was the need for high-quality teachers and school leaders, designed to really talk about the issues of student success. Now here we are 8 years later approving a new plan, and it has, we see that there are lots of efforts underway to talk again about the recruitment of teachers, especially in high-need and shortage areas. I think it's important to note the progressive nature of that 2008 report that really, nearly a decade ago, tried to highlight the importance of holding up the value of teaching. In fact, the document was quoted as saying, promoted teaching as a profession that is valued, finding meaningful ways to lift up classroom teaching as a highly respected and appreciated career path. So based on what's happening in the legislative session, we're going to have new ways and opportunities to do that again. During the month of February, as I mentioned, I had the opportunity to travel the state and meet with the presidents of each of our 7 public systems, as well as the president of the independent colleges of Indiana, to talk about the new strategic plan and to talk about any other issues that they thought were important to share with the commission and with me. It was really encouraging to see. Before I went, I tried to pull out the strategic plans at each of those colleges or universities, and it was really interesting to see how much alignment there is between what they're doing in the areas of student success and what you as a commission have really directed the staff to be involved with as well. I know that just last week, the University of Southern Indiana's Board of Trustees adopted their new 5-year strategic plan. And according to President Bennett, the new plan is designed to, quote, shape the future through learning and innovation, and will frame the strategies and metrics going along with that. This is certainly consistent with the document that you will be supporting this afternoon in Reaching Higher Delivering Value. On March 4th, you may have seen this in your papers around the state as well, the Higher Learning Commission, you'll recall that the Higher Learning Commission is the accrediting body that accredits 19 middle states, including Indiana, and they approved officially the creation of Purdue University Northwest. We talked to you about this before, but this was sort of the final hurdle. The unification of Purdue University Calumet in Hammond and Purdue University North Central in Westville has really been in the works for quite a while since Purdue trustees approved it in 2014, July of 2014. You probably also know that the new chancellor was the former chancellor of Calumet and will become the chancellor of the unified school, and that's Tom Kean. The merger actually makes the Northwest campus the 5th largest public university campus with more than 15,000 students and about 1,500 faculty and staff members. So it increases the size of the presence of Purdue in Northwest Indiana. As you know, one of the major sections that we're talking about in the strategic plan has to do with career alignment, work and learn opportunities. I just wanted to bring to your attention that in partnership with the Department of Workforce Development, we made an application to the National Governors Association to participate in work related to work-based learning. Indiana was one of 6 states selected by NGA to do that, and I think this will be a really good opportunity to work with our state partners and integrate the work and look at models of success, and then determine how this can integrate into the work in our 3rd section of our strategic plan. Finally, I just wanted to to mention to all of you that today, March 10th, is the final day for FAFSA applications to be complete. So if any of you have children, grandchildren, or friends, you have until what, midnight tonight? Is that correct? So don't let that timetable pass. It's a really critical point. And we've done everything we can as a commission to notify students and families, but wanted to bring it to your attention one more time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. And then just one other item before we ask approval for the minutes. For those who are not aware, the Central Indiana Business Hall of Fame inducted 5 laureates just this past month, and you all be interested to know that one of those laureates seated was our own Al Hubbard, who's been inducted into the Central Indiana Business Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Al. You're very welcome. Our minutes from the Thursday, February 11th commission meeting in your agenda booklet. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. All those opposed? The minutes are approved. Now, we have dedicated the time traditionally allotted to our public square to other presentations by commission staff, so we do not have a public square discussion agenda item this month. We will resume the series next meeting, and the topics will be aligned to the priorities outlined in reaching higher and delivering value. Now, we have our strategic plan on the agenda for approval. So I just think a little background commentary is in order. In the decade since the first Reaching Higher strategic plan for Indiana's higher education system was adopted, Hoosiers with education beyond high school have improved their economic standing, while those with less education have experienced stagnant earnings and reduced job security. The question then isn't whether Hoosiers need higher education, but rather, how does Indiana deliver greater value and a full return on investment for students and the state? Answering that question is the premise of the Commission's third strategic plan, Reaching Higher, Delivering Value. The culmination of nearly a year of thoughtful dialogue, this guiding document reflects our commitment to a student-focused, mission-driven, and workforce-aligned system of higher education as we continue to strive towards Indiana's big goal, which is to have at least 60% of Hoosiers with education beyond high school by the year 2025. Now, the 3 sections of the plan, completion, competency, and career, outline specific strategies and clear metrics designed to ensure that all Hoosier students have a clear path to college and career success while addressing key questions related to college value in the 21st century regarding the issue of completion. How do we keep more students on track to graduate with minimum debt? As to competency, what do post-secondary degrees and credentials tell us about what students have learned and are able to do? And career, how can we ensure that Hoosier students are prepared to succeed in fulfilling careers that support a stronger Indiana? The Commission then developed this plan with the input from Indiana's higher education community, business leaders, and state policymakers. We have appreciated and have benefited from their counsel and ongoing collaborative partnership, and we look forward to bringing more Hoosiers into the conversation with the public unveiling of Reaching Higher, Achieving More. Next month, and that should be Reaching Higher, Achieving Value. Next month, during State of Higher Education Address and the Welding Conference for Higher Education, as has been mentioned earlier. At this point, is there any comment or any discussion from Commission members? If no, is there a motion to adopt the resolution of the strategic plan? There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Dennis, I'm going to abstain because I have some concerns about the section on competency. And I, first of all, I believe the plan is well done, and I compliment the staff for coming up with it. But I feel we're maybe rushing into the competency-based outcome. What do we call it? Competency-based. Because I don't think there's not enough research, in my opinion, to push it to the extent that I think we're doing. I think that there's certainly a place for it, in the right place and the right time, and I know that we want to encourage the schools to do pilots, but I think to me, the way it's worded, it's a little bit too aggressive, so I just want to explain that.
Thank you very much for your comment. We note the abstention. And any other comments, feedback? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? It has been approved. Thank you very much, and thank you, staff, for your work. Thank you, the community leaders, business leaders, higher education leaders, and your input. And we look forward to ongoing input and collaborative work as we move forward in implementing the plan. Indiana's college readiness reports are produced annually to help local schools and communities understand how their students are performing in college while informing policies that increase college readiness and success. The Commission recently published the results from the high school graduating class of 2014, and Dr. Stacy Townsley is going to give us an overview of the results. Dr. Townsley, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. My plan today is to walk through a few short slides highlighting some of the key findings that we have with our latest available data. And then I thought I'd do a little show and tell with our new interactive dashboard that will accompany the traditional PDF reports that are going to be published soon on our website. So again, the purpose of the college readiness reports is to provide information on students' college-related access, preparation, both academic and financial, performance, and persistence. And I wanted to let you know that I lobbied to get another P word in there, but I couldn't come up with anything. So, the reports show demographic, geographic, and academic breakdowns on various measures. For instance, the reports show college-going rates by race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, by state, county, corporation, and school level, and by things such as high school diploma type and whether or not a student took and passed an AP test while in high school. And again, these reports help highlight K through 12 and post-secondary alignment and opportunities and to identify successful pathways. So a little bit about the data before we jump in. The reports look at Indiana high school graduates who enrolled in a post-secondary institution in the school year immediately following high school graduation. In order to be considered enrolled for the purposes of these reports, the students must be a degree-seeking undergraduate pursuing either a certificate, associate, or bachelor's, and enrolled for the equivalent of at least one semester. So, for our most recent reports, we took the 2014 high school graduate data provided by the Department of Education and matched it to enrollment data submitted to us by Indiana Public Colleges for the 2014-15 school year. We also used enrollment data from the National Student Clearinghouse to provide us with a picture of students attending Indiana private and proprietary colleges, as well as those who went out of state for college. It's important to note that the detailed enrollment and performance information is only available for students who attended Indiana public colleges. And new data elements that we've incorporated in this year's report include FAFSA on-time completions. This will be for all filers in Indiana. The percent of freshmen with student loans, dual credit status, college entrance exam readiness benchmarks, as well as part-time and full-time breakdowns for all measures. So the college going rate is one of the key indicators we track on the college readiness reports. And the data show that the 65% college going rate has held fairly steady over several years, and this is on par with the national average. The map on the slide shows college going rates by county, with the blue sections representing the highest percentage of students going to college within a year of high school graduation. This map is part of our online dashboard, which I'll walk through in a few minutes. The college type or sector enrollment patterns also are holding steady. If we look at just the college-going population, we see that nearly 75%, 3 out of 4 Hoosiers, attend Indiana public colleges. 13% go to Indiana privates, and the remainder go to proprietary or out-of-state institutions. One of the new data elements, again, that we've included in this year's report is the on-time FAFSA filing rate, which includes all Indiana resident filers, not just the recent high school graduates. And this bar chart shows a steady increase in the percentage of on-time filers. And as Commissioner Lubbers referenced, the on-time filing rate is an important first step in maximizing student eligibility for state and federal aid opportunities. The slide also highlights another new data element, the percentage of high school graduates attending Indiana public colleges who take on loan debt their freshman year. And in 2014, 46% of high school graduates took on loan debt. This measure represents students reported as receiving at least one federal, subsidized or unsubsidized, institutional or private loan during their first year enrollment. Remediation need is another key indicator we track with the college readiness reports, and the data show that the percentage of students enrolling in remedial coursework continues to decline. We're around approximately 18%. 1 out of every 5 high school graduates attending Indiana publics are identified as requiring remediation. So when we talk about remediation, we're referring to English language arts, which is reading and or writing, mathematics, or both the subjects. And it's important to note that the remediation requirement is identified by the individual public institutions. There are undoubtedly a number of factors affecting remediation trends. However, one major factor is a change starting in the 13-14 academic year in the way that the state's largest remedial credit provider, Ivy Tech, identifies students for direct placement into regular college courses. Changes include the introduction of customized placement tests and the use of high school GPA for placement purposes. Math, of course, continues to be the biggest remediation challenge, regardless of high school diploma type. Nevertheless, we're seeing improvement. In the text box, we highlight that 12% of all high school graduates enrolling in Indiana publics required math remediation in 2014. This is down from 28% in 2011. The pie charts on the slide show areas of remediation subject needs by diploma type for 2014 high school graduates. The dark orange represents math only. The light orange is for both math and English language arts, while the turquoise blue is for English language arts only. If we combine the orange slices of the pie, we see that for general diploma earners, 31% required math, compared to 28% English. For core 40 earners, 17% required math compared to 9% English only. And for honors, 4% required math. Now, there were a handful of honors students who actually required English language arts, about 1/10%, but these are not represented on the pie chart.
Do you mind if I ask a question?
Sure.
You know, I just find these numbers too good to be true. I mean, I cannot believe that remediation in 3 years drops almost in half, 31% to 18%. Now, you gave an explanation, but I just can't believe our public schools are doing that much better.
Yeah, but that says in college. Is that what you see? I think that means that the remediation only took place in the college, not at Ivy Tech. Is that right?
Right, and so the drop that we're seeing statewide actually coincides with the changes at Ivy Tech, which is the state's largest provider of remediation. So it's fair to say that, there are probably other things happening, perhaps in the K-12 environment, but this is a major change. And it's definitely a trend that we need to keep watching.
Right, but I don't think that, this would include those at Ivy Tech who need remediation. In fact, it's my understanding that
I don't think
Ivy
so.
Tech's not used for remediation.
Right.
Yeah,
I'll
please.
comment now. Absolutely, it does include those who get remediation in Indiana. You'll know we're basically saying that as a state, if you need to have remediation, you have it at a two-year institution, so that's included. I think I think you raise a legitimate issue, which is, what about this is attributable to students actually leaving high school better prepared, and what part of it is attributable to a change in how we identify and deliver remediation. So you will recall that Ivy Tech uses a code-requisite model now for remediation. So instead of students being placed in standalone remediation, they're placed in a course where they get credit and they have wraparound services that they might need. That certainly attributes part of that. They're using new ways to identify students who might need remediation. So, for example, a grade point average as well as other measures. That they have new math pathways that they're putting people in that are appropriate for that as well. So it would be safe to say, in response to your question, that this isn't an apples-to-apples comparison, but it is indicative of the fact that we are moving in the right direction. I think both in terms of identifying students earlier in high school who are not prepared and trying to identify them and change the curriculum they receive in high school, and to better identify and deliver remediation for those who do enter a two-year institution needing it.
So if you're in a co-requisite remediation, is that the right phrase?
Co-requisite remediation.
Would that student be classified as needing remediation?
Yes, we do capture that. Was there another question?
I'm trying to understand what numbers these represent based on the questions. I'm now a little bit confused. Are we redefining remediation and who falls into that category because of the Ivy Tech changes?
We're not redefining. It's always been how the institutions identify students requiring remediation. So the only way we track it is by identifying students who enroll in remedial level coursework.
And they can't do it for your institutions anymore. They have to go to Ivy Tech. Is that correct?
That's in Indiana, yes.
So
I think
what
the
these
trend-
numbers really show is that decrease that these students are not only going to these institutions, as well as the fact that they're doing a better job at preparing them.
What the numbers show is that I was actually going to defer to Ivy Tech to explain a little bit more of their program, if you wouldn't mind.
No, that's fine. I'm just trying to
Okay.
understand the numbers. Okay, thank you.
Steve Tincher is coming to the mic, and he's the interim provost at Ivy Tech and could maybe answer some of these questions better.
Good afternoon. So it's what Commissioner Lubbers said in regards to our math pathways. We created a quantitative reasoning math pathways for our programs that did not require a STEM math pathway. And in fall of 2015, so last fall, there was a little over 12,000 students placed into a math pathway. 8,500 of those 12,000 were in the quantitative reasoning pathway. So that's a significant change in regards to the math requirements and the entrance requirements and the placement requirements in regards to mathematics and remediation. That's a significant part of the Ivy Tech change, along with what the Commissioner also pointed out.
Thank you.
So from a tracking perspective, we're seeing those identified needing remediation declining.
I hate to, I promise this is my last comment, but it's just not helpful when you're comparing apples and oranges. It would be nice to know how, With the same definition in 2011, what would the numbers be? And maybe we don't have that because the schools have redefined it.
Right, we actually could not provide that.
Right.
Because as Stacy has said, they identify the students who are needed remediation, and because they have math pathways and other ways of doing this, it's impossible to have an apples to apples, even though I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, if you, for instance, go into the math pathway, you don't need remediation. If you went into STEM, you might.
We've heard from an Ivy Tech rep. We're also going to hear from President Johnson of Vincennes.
I think one of the issues that maybe makes an apples to oranges comparison probably an appropriate thing is the fact that one of the things we've come to look at, I think Ivy Tech has, I know Vincennes has, is maybe the measures we were using before to determine who needed remediation may not have been completely accurate. So we've been questioning whether we were placing students in remediation who actually needed remediation, or whether we were applying a standard that was perhaps placing them falsely in remediation. So that's part of the challenge. If that's moving forward, we're coming up with, we hope, our better measures as well as better approaches. So it's not going to be possible to have apples to apples as we're changing that standard, not lowering it, but addressing it, and it may have been inaccurate to begin with.
With pathways that weren't available before, I see the look of confusion on Chris's face, and he's wondering whether, in fact, we're offering easier math, and that's why this is happening. What's happening is we've had everyone on the same, essentially, math pathway to begin with, regardless of whether they were going into a STEM, a calculus field, a liberal arts field, or whatever. And there's been a body of information provided. And I dare say that if we looked around this room, with the exception of John and maybe a few others who have used math on a daily basis, whether, STEM calculus math would be the appropriate math for everyone, or whether there's another math that's rigorous and aligned with what that individual is going to need. What we've discovered is that math became, as I mentioned earlier, not a pathway to a career and success, but became an absolute obstacle to college completion for a significant number of students. So what you want to do is have pathways that have academic rigor in the math pathway aligned to what students might want to do, either as transfer students needing STEM and calculus, or a one-year certificate going right into an area where a quantitative or even a different type of math was more appropriate. The decisions about how to do that are done at the institutional level, not at the commission level, although we've engaged in this math pathway discussion as well. So I think we could, maybe what I'm hearing is that there might be a reason at some point for us to better understand math pathways and exactly why we moved in that direction. And let's see if we can figure out as a part of, if you look at our strategic plan, we have focused a lot on math in the completion section. So it would be appropriate in one of our public squares to bring to you again a discussion about how we deliver math and what math students are getting.
Okay, thank you. So of course, college readiness is another way we talk about remediation needs by focusing instead on the percentage of students who did not require remediation. And again, as this chart illustrates, we see that high school diploma type matters, although the latest data show a greater percentage of Core 40 and general diploma earners now fall under that category of college ready compared to previous years. And of course, just based on this recent conversation, it certainly will be a trend to watch. Dual credit status is another new data element included in this year's report, and this slide highlights the fact that, not surprisingly, dual credit earners are more likely than their non-dual credit peers to be college ready. An important caveat here is that for purposes of the college readiness reports, the two big buckets of students with or without dual credit may include students who earned other types of pre-college credit, such as AP exam credit. We know, however, that the number of students earning AP credit is much smaller than that of students earning dual credit, around a ratio of 1 to 4. Another caveat is that dual credit calculations only include credit hours awarded by Indiana public colleges. So in order to help provide a clearer picture of what is happening with dual credit students, we'll also be releasing a supplemental study to the college readiness reports that examines dual credit students separately from AP credit earners. A final observation about academic preparation is that within the context of the changing remediation landscape, we can The data suggest that the college readiness gaps are narrowing by socioeconomic status and race ethnicity. Again, this is purely on percentages. The chart on the left showed differences between students who did and did not receive free or reduced lunch, which is a proxy measure for low income status. In 2011, we see a 21 percentage point difference between the two groups, whereas in 2014, the difference was narrowed to 15 percentage points. The chart on the right shows that while each group of students made gains in college readiness, Hispanic and Black students saw the biggest improvements of 17 and 16 percentage points respectively. Freshman year performance measures include average GPA and credit hours earned, both of which have remained relatively steady the last several years. This slide highlights the differences in freshman year GPA by diploma type. Note that the general diploma actually falls below a C average.
Can I ask another question? What's these 4 different categories? I don't know if they're the right 4 different categories, but are the number of honor students increasing or decreasing, the number of 440, the number of general, number of average?
So we have seen a relative increase in the number of honors diploma earners. Core 40 still retains a plurality. Among those who are attending Indiana public colleges, about 49%. Honors students represent about 44%.
I think that would be it would be interesting to track that. If you don't mind sharing that with us, that'd be great.
Absolutely. And that data is in the full report as well.
Oh, it is?
Yep. Okay, persistence. An additional college readiness factor is persistence to sophomore year, which we calculate as the number of students who start freshman year at an Indiana public institution and who continued enrollment into the fall semester of the second year at any other Indiana public institution. Because we're on a year's time lag with enrollment data collection, we do not yet have sophomore persistence rates for the 2014 high school graduates, but we do have the data for 2011 through 2013 graduates. These charts detail persistence numbers for the various student subgroups that we include in the college readiness reports, and again, we're only looking at public college data. Not surprisingly, the data indicate that students of more vulnerable populations, such as those who required remediation or who were enrolled part-time, are more likely than their peers to not remain continuously enrolled in college, which of course ultimately affects time to degree and completion rates. And here's another chart on persistence by race and ethnicity, show that white and Asian students are more likely than their peers to remain continuously enrolled. So, as I mentioned earlier, one of the new features of this year's college readiness reports is an accompanying online dashboard, which shows multi-year trends at many levels and allows for county and regional comparisons. And I'd like to spend the remainder of my time highlighting the feature of these dashboards. Again, these dashboards are designed to help high school administrators, county success coalitions, other student support advocates to examine trends in college access, preparation, performance, and persistence. Let us see if we can do this. This happened to me last time. Oh my goodness. Liz?
While we're working the technology out, I have a quick question on the different items listed here on persistence. Do we have a comparison of how this equates to the national figures?
In terms of college going, it's the same, more or less. With the performance, I don't have the data off the top of my head. We certainly can include it.
I mean, the challenge will be that not all states keep track of, have a college readiness report like Indiana does. And so being able to find persistence numbers, this is the first year we had persistence numbers. So there may be a handful of states, Stacy, that would have that, but I don't think we have information on most states on persistence.
Okay. Oh, I didn't anticipate this. Okay, so this first tab is somewhat different from the rest in that it shows demographic context and key readiness measures by both counties and regions using U.S. Census and the college readiness data. The regions represent the 12 economic growth regions identified by the Department of Workforce Development. Over here we have select metrics. The percent associate or higher is the educational attainment by the U.S. Census estimates. The percent non-white population is also census. Everything else is college readiness. The blue on this map, again, represents the highest percentage of a given metric. The color scales are relative to each metric and geographic filter, which is helpful from a visual comparison standpoint. So here we have an opportunity to filter on rural or urban counties, and let's just scroll over here to rural. And you'll notice, of course, the color scale changes, again, in relation to what you're viewing on the screen. And that particular measure is for percent associate or higher. One of the things I wanted to highlight is, for instance, when we look at the percent earning dual credit, we can see a heavy concentration over here in this southeast part of the state. When we highlight the percentage of passing an AP test and earning the credit there, that is much more concentrated in the central part of the state, Hamilton County being one of those, Boone County being another, with the highest. When I look at college going and college ready, we notice down here in this southwest part of the state a very high concentration of blue. But when we click on percent college ready, that comparison changes a little bit. And so that to me caught my attention. It might be something for those counties to look at further. And so what we could do is move over here to the college going tab and explore further by county. And so the college going tab provides a lot of information around the student's initial college enrollment details, including college type, enrollment rates of different subgroups, and for students attending Indiana public colleges, percent by degree level, full-time, part-time, and program of study. And everything can be filtered by county, school, corporation, and individual school level. So I'm going to use the example of Daviess County, which was one of those high college going, low college ready counties that we identified in the previous tab. From this, we can see that the vast majority, of their graduates actually attend Vincennes University. We have them ranked by public institutions and systems. If you clicked on a given system, for example, Indiana University system, it pulls up the different campuses, and again, relative to what you're viewing, the size. Of the students attending. And so the fact that the majority of those students are attending Vincennes, and the fact that Vincennes is a 2-year institution providing remediation, it might provide a foundation for conversations around what are they using for college readiness measures. What are the conversations that need to happen there between K-12 and post-secondary? So another thing on this page, so we're looking at college going trends. I mentioned that the average is staying fairly level over the last several years. And I wanted to highlight here the different breakdowns that we have. So again, for all of these measures, we could look at, I should say most of these measures, we could look at the average by diploma type, by race, by AP test, dual credit, 21st century scholar status, free and reduced lunch, socioeconomic status, and the college ready exam readiness benchmark. And so that's an interesting one. This one looks at college going trends by that particular exam readiness benchmark. Down here, I wanted to highlight, so we're able to use the slide to look at different cohorts and look at these different breakdowns. Again, degree level, enrollment status, program of study. I wanted to highlight for you undecideds. And as we go through, I don't know if the screen will be big enough. So here let's start with 2011. Undecided was towards the top of programs of study at about 16.4% of students entering freshman year as undecided. As we scroll through, we're going down. And finally, we've had a 6 percentage point drop. We're now down around 11%. We move on. Financial preparation tab shows the two measures that I discussed earlier, the on-time FAFSA filing rate and the percentage of freshmen who have taken on loan debt. And I'll quickly go through this. Here and for the rest of the remainder of the dashboards, the map color coding is slightly different. The red indicates the low end of or the danger zone, or the less desirable, and the gray are the more positive. And so for FAFSA, on-time filing, we can see there's been quite a bit of change over the years to where in 2015, relatively most of the counties, I guess, would be at the higher end of the scale. Tab 4 is the academic preparation, which is the remediation piece, and I won't spend a lot of time on this tab because I've already reviewed many of the trends. Here, we're highlighting overall percent needing remediation, remediation trends by student type, and again, those are all of those different subgroups, and remediation needs by subject, and this is only available at the state level, because this type of breakdown quickly becomes so granular that we lose our ability to show the data at the different levels. And the last tab we have here is college performance. And we're looking at, again, average freshman GPA, average credits, and persistence rates. One thing that we did introduce, I'll highlight real quickly, is the part-time, full-time breakout that we didn't have before. And the average credit hours earned for 2014 grads, for full-time for 2014 grads is 24 credit hours, which is below the on-time rate. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation. Happy to answer any questions. I know my time is running short.
Yes, Mayor Costas.
Thank you. I was just pleasantly surprised by the preparation, the academic preparation slide. where the percent of college ready by socioeconomic status, I mean, that's, in 3 years, that's a dramatic closing of the gap, because, of course, the income gap is a big concern for our country and our state. And the gap actually closed by 30% in 3 years if you just do the calculation. And I think that's great news. It seems awfully dramatic in 3 years. Do you have any thoughts as to why that's moved so dramatically?
It's directly tied to the changes in the Ivy Tech college population, I would assume, just because so many of your lower income students, more diverse population attending Ivy Tech, and with the changes at Ivy Tech and the fact that the Ivy Tech is the largest provider for remedial credit, we're seeing that effect. That would be my hypothesis.
Well, but does that mean that they don't need the remediation that they did before? Because if they're going to Ivy Tech, even if they're in a dual requisite, it's still identified as remedial, right?
Correct.
So I'm not following the logic in terms of why there's a 30%.
So it gets back to how we are tagging people for remediation and whether or not we are appropriately tagging them for remediation. And I think in the past, what I'm hearing from Ivy Tech and others is that we may have been artificially inflating the number of students who were being identified for remediation.
Okay, that makes sense. And so we feel now that it's a more accurate assessment, a more accurate base upon which to work on. So this might reflect to some degree just an artificial assessment.
Right, and so I think we have 2 years worth of data now since the big changes. Continue to watch.
Okay, thank you.
I think the other word of caution, a little bit, without overreacting to this, is there will be a tendency to think that, we have an increased number of students who are leaving our K-12 sector prepared. And then the question is, prepared for what? Is it prepared for something different than it used to be, or is it that we've actually enhanced the preparation? And I think we need to follow this. We don't really know the answer to that exactly. We do know that there have been efforts to recognize students who need remediation and to drive remediation earlier in the K-12 sector. So some of that may be contributing to that. What portion is students actually leaving there better prepared? What portion is a better assignment of people to remediation when they get to college is what I hear a lot of you talking about today, and what we can't really tell until we have more data. I know it isn't exactly the answer you want, but it's the only answer we can give based on where we are. Okay.
I think in that, this is going to be published, right? Or maybe it's already published. I would point that out in that chart, that you're not comparing apples with apples. It's misleading.
I do think we could say something, and we need to work on how we do this, and I know that communications people are listening, about a new way of identifying students for remediation in college, some sort of an asterisk or something to indicate that, so that people who see this wide, significant change have some understanding of what's underneath it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your presentation. In 2014, the Indiana General Assembly charged the Indiana Career Council with reviewing and making recommendations to strengthen the state's diploma requirements for consideration and action by the Indiana State Board of Education before December 1 of 2015. A healthy discussion has occurred about how much math and what kind students should take as part of this new diploma. Based on the feedback from colleges and universities, we have a resolution before us for consideration that would allow the Commission to formally weigh in on this debate. Is there any discussion? May I have a motion to adopt? There's a motion to adopt and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. All those opposed. Thank you, Jerry, and it is approved. Now, as part of the ongoing commitment to return on investment and consumer protection, the Commission, in coordination with the State Board of Nursing, has conducted an examination of Indiana's nursing licensure exam pass rate data. Dr. Ken Sauer will lead us through this discussion, and he have a few guests who will be joining and assisting him. We have Ross Miller, Director of State Authorization with the Commission. We have Tony Herron, Education Compliance Officer with the Indiana State Board of Nursing. And I understand we're going to also be joined by Dr. Ann White, Dean of the College of Nursing with the University of Southern Indiana. So then, Dr. Sauer, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. I'll call attention to you the copy of the slides that you have in front of you, and you also have the tables that were put in front of your places at the working session. Let me start off by just saying a few things to try to provide a context for this discussion. This is really the first time that we've put together data like this on nursing, the licensure data. In fact, the Commission has talked about in times past taking a look at licensure data. This is really the first licensure data that we put together. This analysis is really a result of a very good working partnership that we have had over many months now with the Indiana State Board of Nursing. And the site in particular, the great work of Tony Herron, who joins us this afternoon in this panel discussion. She's been a great help in putting this data together. In fact, almost all of the data that we have here really derives from the State Board of Nursing. I really want to stress that this is the beginning of this discussion, not the end. Today, what we're really doing is turning a spotlight on some problems that we have with licensure rates. I think next, after we have an understanding of what the problem is, we have to work on how we're going to fix it. So again, this is just the first discussion of, I think, what will be a number of continuing conversations on this topic. I guess when we think about the reasons for this analysis, there are really two broad reasons. One comes right out of all of the return on investment ROI work that the Commission has done in the spirit of trying to give a lot of information to students so that they can make informed choices about the institutions they attend and the programs they enroll in. And it's very much out of this spirit of providing information and being very transparent about information that we undertake this analysis. In addition to that, the Board for Proprietary Education, which is actually housed in the Commission, does have statutory responsibility related to consumer protection for students who are attending proprietary or for-profit institutions. And this is really the first time that we've had a discussion about BPE with the Commission. I'll describe BPE in the next slides a little more. But the real impetus for this came as a result of one of the for-profit schools that closed. It was actually shut down by the State Board of Nursing, and we'll get into a little more detail about that in the ensuing presentations. But that really was a lesson learned, that a lot of students were harmed because of that, and it led to us digging into this issue to a great extent, and the results of that analysis are before you today. Again, this is the spotlight. Now we have to figure out what to do with this. Just a few words about the Board for Proprietary Education. This was created by the General Assembly in the 2012 session. There were modifications to the responsibilities of the board that took place during the 2013 session. This replaced a formerly another state agency that was totally separate from the Commission on Proprietary Education, or COPE as it was known. BPE consists of a 7-member board of individuals appointed by the governor. It is independent, and it deals with institutions, for-profit institutions, both Indiana as well as out-of-state institutions that offer instruction that is credit-bearing, that results in degrees, and also programs or institutions that are accredited or seeking accreditation from a body, an accrediting body recognized by the U.S. Department of Education. So that's the scope of the programs. The previous agency took everything from dog grooming schools to cosmetology and so on. Now, all of those programs were given to the Department of Workforce Development. These credit-bearing, degree-granting, accredited institutions came to the Board for Proprietary Education. The board is actually staffed by the commission, and Ross Miller is a commission staff member, but he spends a lot of his time on BPE-related matters. He does other things too besides BPE activities, but he spends an awful lot of his time on that. By statute, an associate commissioner is the executive director of BPE, and I am that person. The commissioner gave that responsibility to me, so that's another hat that I wear. The commission administers 2 BPE-related funds. One of those results from fees, and they're actually quite modest, that are collected from proprietary institutions. The other, the Career College Student Assurance Fund, is intended to provide a fund of money that can be used to reimburse students if a program suddenly closes and the institution that was offering that program, or the institution itself closes, was unable to provide teach-out options for those students. And in addition, for any situation in which a student may have been harmed in some way by the institution not living up to its obligations. And by the way, I should have said this at the outset. There are a lot of slides here. We envision this more of a conversation, so please, at any point, if you'd like to stop to offer a question or comment, please do so. Pardon? No, that's certainly true. This is a list of programs, for-profit institutions that are overseen by BPE that have nursing programs. A lot more information about those later. The next 6 slides are going to deal with the number of nurses who are newly licensed over the last 4 years of data. So between 2012 through 2015, 4 years worth of data. There are 2 ways to become a registered nurse. This particular pie chart is dealing with new RNs, new registered nurses, who have graduated from an Indiana associate degree program, AS in nursing program. So you can also become an RN by graduating from a baccalaureate, BS in nursing program, BSN program. That both the ASN graduates and the BSN graduates take exactly the same licensure exam. It's a national exam, and both of those graduates, ASN, BSN, can become a registered nurse by passing that exam. So we're going to now walk through the next 4 slides. We're all going to deal with RNs. And by the way, the 2 pie chart and the next slide underneath it both relate to ASNs, and then we'll talk about the next page deals with BSNs and then LPNs. Now, what this pie chart is showing is that over this 4-year period, some 66% of newly licensed RNs that graduated from associate degree programs came from the public sector. So the public sector clearly is the big provider here. But if you look at the red, you'll see that 14% of those new RNs who graduated from ASN programs came from the not-for-profit sector, the ICI institutions, and some 20% came from the for-profit sector. Now, so bottom line is all three sectors play a pretty big role when you're talking about associate degrees in leading to new RNs. The problem comes when you start to look at the pass rates. And so I call your attention to the bottom of this slide. And these percentages are the extent to which the pass rate for the particular sector differs from the national pass rate. Remember, this is a national licensure exam, so national data is readily available. And we do this comparison to the national pass rate because it's more aspirational. We'll hear later that there's a little different criterion when it comes to the State Board of Nursing raising questions about a program and its performance. But for our purposes, we want to be aspirational. We'd like to be at or above the national average with respect to the pass rates. So if you look at the public sector programs, you see that the graduates in aggregate are, the licensure rate, the pass rate, is 4.8% above the national rate. Pretty good. If you look at the not-for-profit, it's about at the national rate. But if you look at the for-profit sector, you see we're almost 25% below the national pass rate. That is a problem, a big problem. And there are really two problems. We'll get to the other one later, but this one is the biggest. Yeah, Chris.
Ken, to this point, and actually I noticed it at the same question in looking at the more detailed data in the report we got this morning. It says in the beginning of your slides that part of this was prompted by the fact that one institution was recently closed. To what level did that performance at that school have to get to before it was closed, as compared to some of the lower performing schools that we see here, at least as it relates to pass rates?
At the 21% level.
That's the one that was closed, you're saying?
Yes,
the one
it
that's
was.
21? Okay.
Yes, that is the one, right.
And I just wanted to understand exactly the sectors, because I understand the public sector. I'm not quite sure what the not-for-profit sector represents that are graduating, or I know you went through it, but I just didn't understand a lot of the acronyms.
That's the 31 members of the independent colleges of Indiana, so Notre Dame, the University of Indianapolis,
That's the
Wabash College. Those are all of those colleges, yes.
So the private colleges and universities,
Yes,
so the
yeah,
not-for-profits.
that's the not-for-profit.
For-profits are the ones that
Right,
we're
and
seeing.
then the
Okay.
for-profit are those proprietary institutions. Correct. Sure. So, in any case, this really highlights one of the major problem areas that we have. Again, this is ASN graduates who take the licensing exam to become RNs. The next slide shows the number of students who become new RNs by virtue of graduating from a baccalaureate program, a BSN program. Remember, they take exactly the same exam as the ASN graduates. And, yes, Chris?
Just a quick question. This is a national test. If someone fails it, can they retake it? How many times can they retake it? Does this data show first-time pass, or does it show multiple time?
Let me begin with your question about the first-time takers. Yes, all of this data is for students who took the exam for the first time. That is really the benchmark that most of the programs use. And Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they can take the exam 3 times.
They can take the exam 3 times before then they have to come before the Board of Nursing for a personal appearance to talk about why they're having exams. But this data only looks at first-time testers.
Now, we have looked at, just a word about those who take it for the second time. We haven't looked at this data at the Indiana or institutional level. However, there is data at the national level that suggests that the pass rate for second-time takers is even lower than the first-time takers. And in general, the evidence seems to suggest with each passing year, the lower the pass rate gets for those who take the exam. But I think we're well within typical analyses by focusing on the first-time pass rate. That's the generally accepted metric in this area. So at the baccalaureate level, we see that the for-profit sector pretty much disappears. There's just one small program. That's that very, very slender green color. For the most part, we have, again, approaching 2/3 of the new RNs who graduated from BSNs coming out of public university programs, and roughly 1/3 who are coming out of the not-for-profit, the ICI institutions. With
your numbers on well, your slide 8, I guess, the one that shows the prior slide to that.
Yes.
No, I'm sorry, the prior slide to that.
Keep going. Back.
Back. Yeah.
This
yeah, but no, the one in between. One more, right there.
Right there. Okay.
The one that got everyone's attention. So, does the public, we know, I think, where I just learned that the for-profit, they're not getting a bachelor's degree. But the not-for-profit and the public are getting bachelor degrees. Do those numbers include the bachelor degree nurses?
No, these are only the new RNs who have graduated from associate degree programs.
With associate degree, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and by the way, one other point, and this is really the question, Chris, about first-time takers reminds me of another point, and that is this data that we're looking at includes students who took the exam in another state. So you may have a student who came to an Indiana institution, but either because they're from another state, or they move, or they find an employment opportunity, they take the exam, let's say, in Illinois. And those students are included. So this is a pretty, the pass rate data that we have here is pretty solid.
And do the nursing students who went to the for-profit schools, I know it's hard to generalize, but did they apply? I would assume, are for-profit schools more expensive than public? Are for-profit schools more expensive than public?
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
And so
we do have some data on that. We didn't include it in today's presentation,
right.
But yes.
But so I'm assuming that the only reason someone would go to the for-profit is because she or he could not get into the public.
Well,
that could also get into how much advertising was done by the for-profit institution and recruitment.
And unfortunately, there's a common perception that it is faster to get through a proprietary program than it is to get through a state school. Many, as to Ross's point, many of these advertise a 15-month program, and the idea is to get a degree that's marketable and will get me a position that I can earn a good living. And so many of the proprietary programs market themselves as you can still work and go to school here and get a good degree much faster than you can anywhere else.
It would be interesting to know, and I don't know if anyone's ever done the study, if you looked at for-profit students with the same admissions characteristics as, say, the public sector, then how do the graduates of the for-profit do compared to those of the public sector?
I'll be getting into that, but not all of the for-profit pass rates are low. Some are doing well.
I see.
Yeah. In fact, the Board for Proprietary just had a meeting, quarterly meeting on Tuesday.
Right.
And as part of that presentation, we discussed nursing pass rates at that meeting. And as a part of that presentation, we asked one of the institutions that did very well, it was Harrison College, well, let the cat out of the bag. Harrison does extremely well, as Ross is going to show you in a minute. And it is a for-profit institution.
So it's not by definition for-profit that's the problem?
Right. Well, as a sector, it is a problem. And as we get into the institutional detail, you'll see that it's widespread. But it is true that we have at least one example of a for-profit school that knows how to do it right.
And in visiting the programs and speaking with students directly, they will oftentimes tell me, I came to this proprietary program, I would have rather gone to a state school, and I'm going to use Ivy-Tech because I have dealt with that firsthand, but they have a 2-year waiting list, and I don't want to wait 2 years to start this degree. So we have real capacity issues with our public schools.
Another point about the students who attend proprietary institutions, we are just beginning the process to have the first conversations about starting to collect unit record data, the same data, or at least a subset of that data that we collect from our public institutions. So I think when that process is complete, we'll be in a much better position to present data about students who attend proprietary institutions. So I think I was at that last slide there about the BSN programs. I simply wanted to point out that both our public and our not-for-profit institutions as a sector, as two sectors do very well. They are about 2.5 percentage points above the national average. Now we've been talking about RNs, which are really the backbone of the nursing, the nurses in the state. We also have something called LPNs, which are licensed practical nurses. You don't need as long of an educational program to become an LPN, and they tend to do some of the more basic nursing tasks, but nonetheless, they are an important part of the healthcare system. In this state, we have the not-for-profits that simply are not a player with respect to LPN programs. So we have the public and the for-profit institutions. Here, as you can see from this pie chart, if you look at the number of new LPN over this 4-year period, the proprietary sector accounted for 42% of those new LPNs. But you also have an issue with respect to pass rates. For the public sector, our institutions are 13.8% above the national average as a sector. The proprietary institutions are 6.6% below. So not as much as the ASN programs were below the national level, but they certainly are below and by a significant amount. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Ross Miller, who's going to provide some institutional and campus level highlights for these three sectors.
Thank you, Ken. The first slide we're going to look at is the associate level at the public institutions. You'll notice there 13 of the Ivy Tech's 15 active programs have an overall pass rate for the 4-year time period 2012 through 2015 above the national average for ASN programs, which is 83%. Of the public ASN programs, Ivy Tech and Terre Haute had a pass rate of nearly 96%, which is the highest ASN NCLEX pass rate of any of the public campuses. While Ivy Tech and Garret had the lowest pass rate at nearly 79%. At the associate level for the non-for-profit institutions, which would be the independent colleges of Indiana, 5 of the 7 not-for-profit active programs had pass rates for the 4-year time period 2012 through 2015 above the national average, which is again 83% for ASN programs. Of the not-for-profit programs, Marian University had the highest pass rate of nearly 91%. The University of St. Francis at Crown Point had the lowest pass rate at 74%. Now we'll turn to the associate level at the for-profit institutions. Harrison College at Indianapolis had an overall pass rate for the 4-year time period of 94%, 94.3, which is well above the national average for ASM programs, and it is the highest among all of the for-profit programs. This is the one that Ken alluded to earlier. And conversely, Indiana Deputy University, which is now defunct, had an overall pass rate of 21%. So you can see a huge contrast between the two.
Can I ask a question? About how many students did Indiana Dabney University have when it closed?
It was very low numbers. About 40 students.
Thank you.
That's correct. On this side, among the other for-profit institutions, their 4-year pass rates were 63% at ITT Institute, nearly 59% at Fortis College, 57.6% at Brown Mackey, nearly 56% at MedTech, which actually has 3 locations, and then finally 41% at MJS School of Nursing, which is up in Lake County. On this slide, we're looking at the baccalaureate level programs at the public institutions. 8 of the 13 public university programs had an overall pass rate for the 4-year time period above the national average of 87.2% for BSN programs. The University of Southern Indiana had the highest pass rate of any BSN program in the state at 98%. Indiana University East had the lowest pass rate at nearly 78%.
Ross, if you don't mind if I ask a question real quick. And I recognize that this is not the purpose of this presentation at all. However, I can't help but realize that the ASN and BSN are taking the same test. The BSNs have twice as much school, and we're only seeing a 4.2% increase in pass rates. What are we doing with that twice as much school that the pass rates really aren't changing?
Well, certainly the pass rate on the licensure exam is important, is significant. But I guess I'd say 2 things. One is the pass rates are both pretty high, really. If you look at most of our public programs, both ASN and BSN, I mean, they do pretty well. And secondly, the BSN really provides the foundation for further employment, career advancement, additional nursing programs. I mean, if you want to be a nurse practitioner, you're going to have a BSN. And there are some hospitals, magnet hospitals, for example, that only employ BSN. Tony, would you like to add something?
And I would say that the national exam is only to measure the minimally prepared safe nurse. So whether or not you have a 2-year degree, and I must add one thing here, we do have one remaining 3-year program that awards a diploma. We have one left in the state, that's St. Elizabeth and Lafayette, and the 4-year BSN. All of them, what we're trying to assess is, at a basic level, are you minimally competent and safe to enter the workforce and deliver care? And as Ross alluded to, Dr. Sauer, the bachelor prepared nurse is prepared to take on more responsibility at the bedside and in the care setting than the 2-year ASN graduate. It's a little bit strange that nursing only has one entrance exam. I know that other professions have levels. But right now, we just measure the basic level of competency to provide care when you begin as a professional.
Were there any other questions about that slide? Okay. Okay, on this slide, we're looking at the, let's go back one. 10, this slide is the baccalaureate level for not-for-profit institutions. 10 of the 12 not-for-profit university programs had an overall pass rate for the 4-year time period above the national average for BSN programs of 87.2%. The University of St. Francis had the highest pass rate of any BSN program in the state at 95%. And then we have Huntington University at the lowest pass rate at exactly an even 81%. Now we get into the licensed practical nursing programs for the public institutions. Every public sector program had an overall pass rate for the 4-year time period above the national average of 83.3%. Ivy Tech shows outstanding scores. All but 2 of the 17 programs had pass rates above 98%, and 4 of these programs had a pass rate of 100%, which is outstanding. For the for-profit institutions, 3 out of the 7 active programs with 4 years worth of data were above the national average. MedTech at Fort Wayne had the highest pass rate among the for-profit programs at nearly 93%, while Brown Mackie College at Indianapolis location had the lowest pass rate of 71%. Any questions?
Just a quick question. I'm trying to get a sense of why there's this spread. Is it a factor of the quality of students coming in? Is it a factor of the expense of the program? Is it a factor of the type or rigor of the program?
I would say the type of rigor of the program. I would say the instructors that are hired. I would also say how long the instructors remain at the institution and the turnover of instructors at the institution, and also the quality of the instructors. And Tony may have more to say about that as well. And clinical sites as well.
I mean, all of those factors play into the difference in the programs and their results. We wanted to give you a little bit of background about the State Board of Nursing. Not everybody knows about us. It is an independent licensing board housed in the Professional Licensing Agency. One thing I didn't put on there, out of all the professions that are housed in PLA, nursing is the largest. So we also have medical, dental, pharmacy, but nursing is by far the largest licensing board. We have 9 board members that are appointed by the governor every 4 years. They serve 4-year terms. And of the 9 members of the board, 6 of them are statutorily registered nurses. At present, 4 of those happen to be educators. 2 of the nurses on the board are LPNs, and we do have 1 consumer member. We have 13 staff in our office that are organized into 2 units. Pre-licensure handles all of the applications for anyone who is seeking to take the licensing exam, whether that's at the LPN or at the RN level. And the other half of our office is compliance and litigation. So looking at those practitioners who have problems with practice, whether that be malfeasance, whether that's malpractice, whether that's diversion, fraud, we look at all of that in compliance. Some interesting numbers. We're a little bit busy. In 2015, we issued 10,691 new licenses alone. The way renewals work, RNs renew on the odd year, LPNs renew on the even year. In 2015, we renewed 107,876 licenses. 102,000 of those are RNs, 4,500 are advanced practice nurses. Those are nurses who have a master's degree and many times work as nurse practitioners or certified registered nurse anesthetists. We also have 145 nurse midwives and 509 LPNs that we renewed this year. In 2015, we also, and this is on the compliance side, we had 505 personal appearances before the board for some kind of infraction or episode in their professional life that the board felt needed to be investigated. We had 355 hearings where those instances were then investigated to a larger degree. Many times the infraction is turned over to the Attorney General's office for investigation and perhaps prosecution. We suspended 121 licenses and we revoked 14. One of the things that when I came to the board really surprised me was I thought revoking your license was as bad as it could get. I was wrong. After you've had your license revoked, you can reapply in 7 years. However, I can tell you in the 3 years that I've been with the board, we have suspended 3 licenses for 99 years because we want to make sure that these people never, ever can touch a patient again in Indiana. If a nursing program has a pass rate below 80%, which is the standard that Indiana uses for 3 years in a row, the board will then ask for a plan of correction and then allow the school 1 year to work that plan of correction for improvement. If the plan of correction results in no improvement after that first year, then a site visit is made by myself and another board member. We go out and we actually look at the program, look at the curriculum, look at the facilities, and actually speak with students and faculty. And then depending on the results of that visit, the board can choose to decide the accreditation status, moving them perhaps to conditional accreditation with a specific period for improvement. And if that doesn't occur, then they can move to begin to withdraw accreditation. And to operate a program in the state of Indiana, you must have accreditation from the State Board of Nursing. The other requirement that some of our students get very upset with is in order to sit for the national licensure exam, you must have graduated from a state accredited program. So that's why, especially in the instance of Dabney, we had students who had completed that program, but it was no longer accredited, so they could not take the licensing exam and therefore go into the workplace. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. At a recent meeting, we looked at 3-year NCLEX scores for all of our programs, and the following institutions were placed on plans of correction. Brightwood College, which was formerly Kaplan, Brown Mackey Park Wayne, which is a 2-year program, Fortis College in Indianapolis, which is also a 2-year program, MJS School of Nursing, which is up in the Hammond area, a 2-year program. We also looked at ITT Indianapolis and Merrillville. The board moved to perform a site visit, and they are then holding a hearing to begin withdrawal of accreditation based on the last 4 years' performance. ITT Newburgh was placed on a new plan of correction, and ITT South Bend has been on a plan of correction, but we were notified by ITT Corporate they are actually closing all programs at that campus, so those students will be taught out and there will be no more nursing program in South Bend. In 2015, actually it was 2014, we shut down Indiana Dabney University for 4 years of scores that were substandard. And I will tell you that as lessons learned from that experience, that's why we are looking more closely at these programs more earlier in the process of having poor scores, and that's why we were so excited to be able to work with the Board of Proprietary Education, who also monitors many of these programs, to work together as a partner to make sure that the students don't get caught as students did at Dabney before. We incorporate 2 avenues of activity. We look at the pass rate information and go to put it in a CHE communication and perform outreach activities. Unfortunately, many of our programs who have less than stellar pass rates are really good at advertising, and they're really good about putting a picture out there that many times is not realistic. And we want to make sure that the students are informed consumers and have data that has value to make their decisions. BPE in partnership is going to review the nursing programs that do have low pass rates and reinforce efforts to improve or take on corrective actions. One of the things that the nursing board is hobbled with, we can only take action based on the way our statutes are written after 3 years of scores that are below standard. However, BPE brings in the proprietary programs on an annual basis to have them reaccredited. And in working with BPE, we can let them know a program that's having difficulty that they may be overseeing, and they can help sooner to bring that program into line with having improvement in the results. So that was very quick and fast, and that, as a nurse, that's the only way I know how to talk. So, any questions?
You're a tough nurse.
That's what 37 years in the ER will do for you.
Earlier, you mentioned revocation of licenses. Can you give some of the reasons for the revocation?
It really is very incident specific. We have had licenses revoked for fraud on a federal level. We have had licenses that were revoked for patient abuse. We have had a license revoked for manslaughter. And those folks are able to reapply after 7 years to have their license reinstated. There are many parameters that they can, measures they have to satisfy to have that come back into fruition, but it is possible to get those licenses back. With a suspension, it can be 18 months, 3 years, or 99 years, whatever the board feels is an appropriate length of the suspension.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Ken, just a quick question. Does BPE have, do they have the teeth or the authority to sanction or cause some of these proprietaries that are falsely advertising to cease and desist? Because the reality is, if you look at some of the ads that are aired, they're highly influential, they're extremely well done, they paint a really rosy picture, and it's an impressionable student target there. I'm just wondering do you wait until the school is up and running, taking the kids' money and then not delivering over a period of years, or is there something a little bit more proactive?
Well, Chris, it's hard to answer fully your question because there are a lot of details. There is a part of the statute that deals with deceptive practices, and I should say that when an institution brings a program to BPE for approval, there is a section of the application that deals with certification, licensure, and accreditation. And in a profession like nursing, you have to be licensed in order to practice, in order to get the full benefit of the program that you have put your money and time and effort into. So I think it is fair to say that when BPE approves a program, the expectations are that a significant number of students will in fact be able to get the license they need in order to get the full benefit from that program. So I think that's the general tack we can take. Now, how far we can go, I'm not sure. We obviously, BPE does have the authority to not approve programs. So that is a possible avenue. I think we probably would want to consult with the Attorney General's office when Indiana DABE closed down. The State Board of Nursing and BPE and the Attorney General's office were all involved in conversations over many, many months. So I think that the short answer is I think BPE does have some options, but we need some time to really figure out the precise pathway to take. And just sort of ending on the points that Tony made, this really is the beginning. BPE has, and the State Board of Nursing working together, I think at the very least, can put some pressure on these institutions and either to improve or get out of the business. And the other thing, of course, that the Commission can do is to try to get information out there to prospective students, and to think about pass rates and to think about other things that they need to take into account before they make their decision about where to apply and where to enroll.
Just curious, have y'all ever thought about maybe adopting, I don't know if it's permissible under your statute, but adopting a rule that if a school drops below a certain passing rate, that they then can only charge the students who actually pass? So they can't charge students who go through the program and don't pass.
That's a possibility, and another possibility is not enrolling students for a new class until they
right, but then I mean, would it be possible to do that?
It might be. That's something we'd have to explore. It's a good.
But I mean, basically, you pay for results as opposed to.
Yeah.
Let me throw in that the Indiana DABNY experience really was the first time that the Board of Nursing has dealt with anything along this line. Most of our rules and statutes were written 10 to 15 years ago, and at that time, preparatory programs were not in existence, and certainly not in the number that they are in Indiana right now. We have a real opportunity, we know, to change our rules, to start to account for practices and problems that we've identified with these preparatory programs, but it's going to take some time. We've had actually a rule writing moratorium in place for several years, but I will tell you that we are meeting next month to begin to write rule revisions to address a lot of the problems that we've identified first through DABNY and with some of the other programs. And one thing that I wanted to share, one of the things that I deal with is the student nurses who have concerns about their program. They call the State Board of Nursing for help. And I can't tell you how helpless I feel when I have a nursing student who calls me and says, I'm $60,000 in debt. I've just been flunked out of the program. They tell me I can't be readmitted. There are no articulation agreements with my program. I can't take these credits anywhere. What am I going to do? And that's probably one of the worst feelings that you can ever have. And I get 4 or 5 of those calls a week. So we have a problem that I'm excited that BPE is going to partner with the Board of Nursing, that hopefully we can make a difference in these students' lives, but we have opportunities that exist.
Mr. Chairman, mindful of the time, and certainly if you'd like the conversation to continue, but we did have one speaker, Dr. Ann White, who did want to make a statement, perhaps.
Right, I was wondering what happened to her, because we were looking forward, especially with the high rating of the University of Southern Indiana.
That was sort of nice, actually. Thank you. I'd like to thank Dr. Sauer and the members of the commission for allowing me to speak. The moral of this story is that when you make a comment in a committee meeting, they then ask you to speak to the entire commission, which is a little interesting. So I will try to make this as short as I can, but also want to make sure that I bring some points across as well. I am here as the Dean of the College of Nursing and Health Professions, but I'm also here as the past president for the Indiana Center for Nursing. This is an organization that was created in 2011, and the purpose of ICN is to unite statewide nursing education and practice leaders to effect change and to ensure highly qualified nursing workforce that meets the needs of the Indiana's healthcare consumers. We have a vast majority of the healthcare systems a part of ICN. We have nationally accredited nursing programs as part of ICN. We also have other nursing organizations that are at the table with us as well. The Indiana State Board of Nursing, the Indiana State Nurses Association, the Indiana Organization of Nurse Executives, the Indiana League for Nursing, the Black Nurse Association of Indiana, the Hispanic Nurse Association of Indiana. We have the LPN Association, and we also have the Council of Deans and Directors. So this is the first time in the history of nursing in the state of Indiana that we have brought all of these constituents together to try to move this agenda forward. We are very, very interested and very appreciative of the fact that people are looking at the state board results. Just as a side trip, and this is my one piece of trivia information, when you look at state board results, you obviously look at the national results, but then I also look at our surrounding states. So just for your information, Illinois had an RN pass rate of 86.5% and an LPN pass rate of 89%. And Kentucky had a pass rate of RN pass rate of 89% and an LPN pass rate of 92%. So Indiana is in the ballpark. We're definitely in the ballpark when you look at some of the surrounding states. We also, though, here at the Indiana Center for Nursing, look at other variables that we feel have a huge impact on our pass rates. And I'm going to briefly mention three. The first one is national accreditation. As Tony said, all of our programs, in order to open their doors and accept students, have to be accredited by the Indiana State Board of Nursing. Many of us, though, and all of the members of the Indiana Center for Nursing hold national accreditation. We have two Department of Education approved accrediting bodies. That is the CCNE, which is the Commission for Collegiate Nursing Education, and ACEN, which is the Accreditation Commission of Nursing Education. You got to get those straight, it's kind of hard. And they are the only two bodies that are allowed to then accredit us. They have different processes, but there's basically the same outcomes. There are minimal thresholds for pass rates, for completion rates, for employment rates. There are standards that we have to address on our quality of our nursing curriculum, on the quality of our clinical experiences, and on faculty qualifications. And what I think equally as important, or even more important, is that overarching this entire national accreditation process is the whole idea of quality improvement. So we, those of us who hold national accreditation, are continually monitoring, and we are talking to our constituents, whether that be faculty, students, the public, our healthcare providers, everyone, so that we can continue to look at how we are doing, identify areas of concern, and then go through the process of doing something about those areas of concern, and then do that reassessment and start over again. What I will tell you is that on this particular form that you see here, those sectors that have an 80% or above average pass rate, a vast majority, if not all, hold national accreditation. And the Indiana Center for Nursing is supportive of nursing programs holding that national accreditation. Another factor that we have that is of critical importance to us is the faculty, the nursing faculty issue that we are facing. Minimal credentials for nursing faculty is master's prepared, and we would prefer doctorally prepared. We don't have very many of them in the state of Indiana. As Tony said, there were 4,500 master prepared. 2015 preliminary data is showing us that we have about 180 doctorally prepared nurses in the state of Indiana. And so we are contending with a small pool of people that will be eligible to serve in the capacity of nursing faculty. They are also getting older. Every day they are getting older. I am getting older. The statewide average for faculty right now is 53 years of age. And so I did a little work and I looked at the USI age range. We have 30 full-time faculty, nursing faculty at USI. 53% or 16 are 55 years of age or older. We have 10% or 3 that are under the age of 40. And I don't think we're atypical. This is something that's going throughout the state, well actually throughout the nation, where we're finding that we're having an aging nursing faculty and we're trying to figure out how we can get younger, master, doctorally prepared nurses interested in education. And some of our biggest challenge is that we don't have enough doctorally prepared nurses. So we very much hope that there's a positive outcome when Purdue comes forward with their PhD program, because that will be very, very helpful to us. We also have a problem that when you look at master prepared nurses, many of them are nurse practitioners. And so when they can work in the environment as a nurse practitioner, they have many more job opportunities than looking at nursing education. And we have a challenge with salaries, and that's kind of a common denominator. But I want to look at it a little bit differently, because I think what has happened, and maybe this is just Ann White speaking, but there's always been a gap. There's always been a gap in salary between service or practice side and education. And we all knew that going into education. We had a passion for education, but there were also trade-offs. So, you know, you knew there were tuition reimbursement opportunities for you or your family. And there were some scheduling opportunities when you didn't have to work weekends, you didn't have to work holidays, you sometimes didn't have to work in the summer. And so there was, based on a personal decision, you could rationalize or you could justify making the decision that you did to go into education. With the salaries that nurse practitioners are receiving now, the gap is so wide that people are now trying to think about and question whether those trade-offs. And I will give you one example that happened to USI 2 years ago. We had a master prepared board-certified nurse practitioner who had a starting salary that was $30,000 more than the doctorally prepared nurse practitioner faculty who taught them. Now, I will also admit to you that I also used that information and brought it to the university, and they were very not aware, and I wasn't aware, to be perfectly honest with you, and we have done some work with trying to be responsive to that. But that's a pretty wide gap, and that's where you have then the challenges of that trade-off isn't where it was or where it used to be. The final area of concern that I wanted to bring forward are the clinical sites. We have many clinical sites, and we need many clinical sites. Our practice partners are doing their darndest to help us to create different sites that are available. But we have a lot of health professions, not only nursing, but PAs, physical therapists, med students, everyone, that are trying to get into these organizations to make that clinical experience happen. And we firmly believe that you have to have that clinical experience because you have to take that classroom, that didactic content, and you have to be able to apply it. And by doing that clinical experience, it only helps you in passing that licensure exam because it's all about critical thinking. It's all about problem solving. And if you can do that in the clinical environment, then that's only going to help you as you have to meet some of these milestones, such as having a licensure exam so you can have an RN license so you can practice as a registered nurse. I think that the schools of nursing also have to take some of this on. I think we have to look at things differently. We have to be more creative in how we identify our clinical sites or how we utilize our clinical sites. One of the things that we did again at USI is decided to have 11 to 7 clinical. Took a deep breath and thought, what are they going to do at night on the night shift from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m.? The rest of the world is sleeping. But we were able to identify an adjunct faculty who was willing to work 11 to 7. We actually had some students who didn't want to get up at 6:30 in the morning and decided that they would very much appreciate having an 11 to 7 clinical, and it was in a critical care step-down area, which we could then do. And so we did that, and it was a very successful experience. Now, I wouldn't want to do that in a pediatric unit or in an OBGYN unit because there's a different population, there's a different type of patient that you're working with. So I think that what ICN has been able to do is bring these ideas to the table, these concerns to the table, and we are having dialogue by educators, by practice people, by everyone in the state, so that we can begin to identify how we might be able to move this whole agenda forward. One of our biggest issues is that we have a capacity problem. Okay, we have many more students who are applying to our programs than we can accept. And then some of those students begin to look for other opportunities that might be available to them. And unfortunately get into a position where, as someone said earlier, when they're going to some of the proprietary programs, we're not able to accept their credits. So that it really causes a challenge for them. So thank you so much. I greatly appreciate having the opportunity to speak to you and add a little bit more to this dialogue about the pass rates. Again, we very much want to be a part of this discussion and hope that we might be able to do that as we're moving along here, and we will continue to also assume our responsibility in making this happen as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Dr. Sauer, we have time for one closing comment from you, sir.
Just to reiterate, this is the beginning, not the end of the conversation, and we intend to devote as much time and effort as it takes to address the problems that we've aired today.
Thank you very much. Sure.
I'll make this very quick, but based on Dr. White's comments, one of the things that come to mind is that we would all benefit from perhaps closer collaboration between the schools and the accrediting or the overseeing bodies, so that what I'm hearing are some of the results of these studies that perhaps can benefit from working closer with the schools of nursing, because I think perhaps there was a disconnect, and there's a connection forged that's coming forward right now, that I would just encourage that forward process, because it seems to me that I think we could all benefit from that.
And then do we have knowledge of, sure.
One thing I just wanted to say is that the president-elect of the Indiana Center for Nursing is sitting right here, Dr. Jane Kirkpatrick from Purdue. So that will be a challenge for her to take on as well. Thank you.
And do we have any immediate data regarding the number of programs in the state that are nationally certified?
I believe there's somewhere around 45 to 50 that we have. Now that includes some of the LPN programs as well as ASN and BSN.
So there is no immediate availability of that information for prospective nursing students. They can go to a site, they can immediately identify what those programs that are nationally certified.
The Indiana Center for Nursing does have a website, and the members are listed there, and it is on the website that only nationally accredited programs can be members in ICN. So if they would go to the ICN website, they would then be able to identify only those programs that hold national accreditation. I think the one challenge is that we have to make sure that we get that information out to guidance counselors, to all of those types of individuals, saying, go to the ICN website for some of that information.
Sure. All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Sauer. Thank you all very much also for joining us today. So appropriately, next on our agenda, we have an academic degree program for full discussion, the Doctor of Philosophy and Nursing, to be offered by Purdue University, West Lafayette. And I would like to invite the representatives from Purdue University to present Dr. Vibert, the Vice President for Engagement, Jane Kirkpatrick, Professor, Head of Nursing, Associate Dean in the College of Health and Human Services, and Dr. Karen Foley, Professor, Director, Program Development for Nursing. Welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. And how appropriate is this proposal at this time? Thank you, Dr. White.
Yes, Dr. White set you up nicely, didn't he?
You have a burden on you now.
Who says there's no collaboration?
Exactly. So I am delighted to have with me here today Professor Jane Kirkpatrick, who is also the Associate Dean in the College of Health and Human Sciences and the Head of Nursing, and as was introduced, Professor Karen Foley, who's been the Director of the PhD program development for this proposal, and he has shepherded the development of this proposal along the way. Both of them would be delighted to answer your questions in just a moment. First, I am pleased to present for your consideration a proposal for a PhD degree in nursing at Purdue University, West Lafayette. A couple of important things I'd like to point out to you. First, the School of Nursing at Purdue West Lafayette is in a perfect position to add this degree program. The faculty have strong experience in education in nursing through a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a campus-based Doctor of Nursing practice, and a collaborative Doctor of Nursing practice that includes IPFW and Purdue Calumet, soon to be Purdue Northwest. The leadership of the Purdue Nursing program understands well the resources essential to provide a quality doctoral research education, the need for this program by other universities and institutions, and the desire for this program from former alums. The faculty in the nursing program are strongly connected with other universities in their educational work. These connections will provide great networks for professorial placement opportunities for the graduates of this program. And second, Purdue University West Lafayette provides unique research opportunities for the doctoral students who will enroll in this program. The School of Nursing has strong partnerships with several programs at Purdue, which include the the College of Engineering, the School of Veterinary Medicine, the Reagan Street Center for Healthcare Engineering, the Center for Aging and Life Course, and the College of Pharmacy. Additionally, the School of Nursing has partnerships with the College of Science and the Departments of Computer Science, Sociology, Psychology, and Health and Kinesiology. The research opportunities available to these future PhD students will be both broad and exciting. These students will have the opportunity to conduct research in areas that will make a difference in the future of nursing, and they will take that knowledge and research skills to institutions where they can educate and influence large numbers of nursing professionals. The PhD program in nursing at Purdue West Lafayette will offer innovative coursework and distinctive research possibilities. The Purdue West Lafayette faculty are excited about this proposal, and they are ready to go. We appreciate your consideration for this proposal, and I present my colleagues to answer any of the questions you might have.
Any questions from commission members?
I have a question.
Please.
I'm very vocal today. I want to start off by saying that I think this is a great program. My concern and my question really lies in the fact of reading the background material. There is a seemingly low number of students graduating from some of the higher levels of degree granting programs from the other ones that are currently in place, such as the MS in Nursing that enrolled 39 headcount, and this is at Purdue, I believe. And there was 33 FTE students and 19 graduates. At the same time, in the West Lafayette DNP program, there was 29 headcount, 11 FTE students that had 3 graduates. So hearing the need and understanding the need, I'm intrigued by how you propose to not just enroll, but graduate those PhD candidates, which I believe we need to increase in order to teach more. But I do have that concern.
That's a great question, and you all have hit on some very classic challenges our profession has wrestled with for a long time. And when you think about someone who's choosing to become a physician or someone who wants to be a pharmacist, they know from the get-go that they're going to be spending 7, 8, 9 years in academics to reach that credential. What we see in the nursing profession is students will get an initial degree, qualifying them for licensure. They'll practice for a period of time and maybe come back once for an additional degree. So if they start at the associate level, they may come back and get that baccalaureate. If they start at the baccalaureate, they may come back to get the master's or the DNP. We find that people wait a long time to come back to school. They've been practicing, they've been making money, they don't have we don't have enough scholarships. Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, other foundations have recognized this problem and have been looking at finding ways to scholarship people to study full-time. But our numbers represent typically a lot of part-time students, and it takes them a long time to complete. And frankly, we know as a profession this is not a model that's sustainable. So we're really looking at ways to entice our high-quality baccalaureate graduates to keep going to complete either the DNP or the PhD. And that's like, I'm waving my flag. This is my mission. If I could see that change happen. It is truly a challenge. But when you have somebody who is, 30 years old, who has 3 kids at home, working a full-time job, they're going to be taking a class or 2 at a time and plugging and chugging their way through. And they do get through, but it takes way longer. So it's one of our challenges. And so we're excited about the idea of enticing students earlier in the process, probably get used to a nice style of living maybe, and still love ramen noodles, but to keep them going. You want to add to that?
So yes, what we've tried to do in the program as well is leverage our resources at Purdue. So we are part of the College of Health and Human Sciences, and our dean has approved us to share coursework, especially in statistics and methods, that will help accelerate and the completion of the degree, as well as leverage these expertise for our students.
Thank you, that's very helpful. I appreciate the challenges and certainly understand that much better. I still have my concern that you're graduating 3 from the DMP that we just approved, what, 2 years ago? When did we approve this? Yeah, 2014. Yeah. So, I mean, I certainly encourage you, I don't want that to hold up the process, but I certainly want to emphasize that concern that, it's, we approve a new program, we'll barely graduate 3 from the one we just approved. It's a little concerning.
I might add one more comment. There'll be different students in terms of goals, obviously. So the DMP is the terminal degree in clinical expertise. The PhD is more of a science role. So for my own research, and we have a very much more, I don't think more structured, but we have a very defined progression in the program. And again, I think leveraging the expertise throughout the college will also help steward these folks through their progression.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I just have a quick one. We need the PhD candidates for faculty, correct? Can a person with a master's be in the faculty?
Yes, and it depends upon what kind of program they're teaching in. So a person with a master's can be a faculty member for a baccalaureate program. A person with a master's might be a faculty for a master's program if that's their specialty. The nurse practitioner programs require clinicians. But we're looking for DMPs for that role. And the PhD faculty are going to be researchers as well. We've talked about needing faculty. We also know that our industries are hiring document prepared nurses to also look at products, to look at the data that's coming back from a lot of our electronic health records in terms of what do we know, and to improve our practices so that the practices that we are teaching are truly best practices and effective. So we're looking to improve the science of nursing as well as orient new nurses to be progressive and deliver best practice kind of care.
Thank you very much. Staff recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. We spent a lot of time talking about nursing this afternoon and had many eloquent comments about the need for nurses and how their need for nursing faculty plays into this. So I'll simply offer the staff recommendation, which is that the Commission approve the PhD in nursing to be offered by Purdue University, West Lafayette. Please be to respond to any questions.
Move approval. There's a move of approval and a second. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. All those opposed. The program has been approved. Congratulations. You all, on page 45, we have a few degree programs for expedited action. The Bachelor of Science in Neuroscience to be offered by Indiana University Southeast, and the Bachelor of Science in Dental Technology to be offered by Indiana University at Indiana University, Purdue University, or Fort Wayne. I have a motion to approve. There's a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. All those opposed. Those items are approved. And then we have 2 capital projects on the agenda for expedited action. Purdue University West Lafayette Life Sciences Utility Infrastructure Site Development and Purdue West Lafayette Indiana Manufacturing Institute lease. Is there a motion to approve? There's a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye. All those opposed? It is approved. And then in our working session this morning, we discussed the performance funding metrics and per unit amounts, which is next on our agenda for expedited action. The item begins on page 53 of the agenda book. And may I have a motion to approve? There's a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. All those opposed? It's been approved. We have information items in our booklet beginning on page 57. Is there any old business for the commission? Any new business? I will note that our next scheduled meeting is set for June the 9th at Indiana State University in Terre Haute. And then there may be a scheduled meeting on May the 12th in Indianapolis. More information will be coming to the commission members later. If there is no additional information, the meeting is adjourned.